Hello and welcome to this week's Sunday service. This is a weekly video from me to you that I hope will help you to create and live a life you love. And this week, I'd like to talk about the saying, if you don't ask, you don't get. And the reason I'm talking about this is because this week I attended an event called Women in the Square Mile that was specifically for women who work in the city. And the reason I attended is because these are the kinds of people who are becoming my clients, and that's on an individual basis as well as on a corporate basis. And I thought it'd be really great for me to understand in more detail the struggles that they have and the issues that they face. And one of the things that came up amongst many things was about women not asking for what they want in life and in business. So this event was predominantly about business, but this applies to both life and business. And I think it applies to men as well as women, although women struggle with this particularly for some reason. So let me ask you, how good are you at asking for what you want in life? Do you go and ask for pay rises? Do you ask for promotions? Do you ask people to mentor you or sponsor you at work? When you're out for a meal, do you ask for it to be modified in a particular way if you have particular food issues? If something's not right, will you ask for it to be corrected? So send something back and ask for it to be corrected. When you go away with family and friends, are you good at stating what your needs are, or do you suppress what your needs are in order to fit in with what everybody else wants and to make other people feel comfortable? So these are just a few scenarios in which we need to ask for what we want and what we need. But for whatever reason, we don't always do that. So what are the reasons why we perhaps don't ask for what we want and what we need? I think a lot of it boils down to fear. So we fear rejection if we ask for what we want. And we can certainly put that into the context of, say, romantic relationships and even friendships. We fear rejection if we ask someone out or if we ask someone to go to an event with us. And we also perhaps fear confrontation. If we ask for what we want and it's not what the other person wants to provide, then there is potential for there to be confrontation. And maybe we worry about what other people are going to think of us. Maybe we fear being seen as too demanding or too aggressive. Maybe we fear being seen as a princess because we are declaring our needs and expecting them to be met. Maybe we feel like we should put others before ourselves. And maybe we even hope that people are going to guess what we want, or we think that people should just know what we want as a sign that they are paying attention to us or that they love us. So we expect them to guess what we want. So where does this come from? Some of this, I believe, is societal. It's conditioning. I'm sure you've heard me say that multiple times if you've watched some of my videos. Especially as women, we have been taught not to be too demanding, not to speak up too much. But sometimes it can also come from role models that we have in our lives or people that we've grown up with who we've learnt these things from. So maybe you did have somebody in your life who never asked out overtly for what they wanted, always expected other people to guess what they wanted, and all the while got more and more frustrated and angry because their needs weren't being met, so that when they did eventually ask for what they wanted, it came out in a kind of overly emotional way, perhaps a manipulative way, an aggressive way with a lot of anger, because the people around them weren't, surprisingly enough, psychic enough to guess what they wanted. Or maybe you grew up with somebody who didn't have any needs, or on the surface of it made it seem like they didn't have any needs because they never asked for anything. They always put other people's needs and desires before their own, and almost made it seem like it was a bad thing to want things in life. You may have another role model. So perhaps it would be really interesting for you to think back over your life and see where you might have learned your behaviours from, because so often the way that we behave has been learned from other people. And that might then give you a clue as to why you behave the way that you do when it comes to asking for what you want. So what happens when we don't ask for what we want? Well, the fact that we're not asking for what we want doesn't mean that our desires change. So all that happens is we become frustrated, we become angry, maybe we become a bit depressed, a bit subdued, because our needs just aren't being met, and we're not representing ourselves properly because we're not declaring what we want in life. So not asking for what we want, it kind of can almost ferment within us this lack of having our needs met, and it can become quite toxic and make us not so great people to be around sometimes if we're getting stroppy, disgruntled, frustrated, because we're not asking for what we want. So how can we change this? So I have a few ideas as to how to go about asking for what we want. So firstly, it's really important to be clear on what's okay for you and what's not okay for you. You know, what you need and what's important to you, so that you know the things that you can cope with not getting, or perhaps areas in which you can handle not having your needs met exactly, and the areas that are really important to you, where you do feel like, no, this is an area where I really need to stand up and ask for what I want. And I'd also say it's really important to declare that, so that the universe, well, however you look at it, God, the universe, etc., so that it knows what you want. Because if you're sending out wishy-washy messages, confused messages, then you're even less likely to get your needs met. Same goes for people. The earlier you start to ask for your needs to be met, the easier it is for people to understand what it is that you need, what it is that you want, and how to provide that for you. And it's really important that we become role models in our lives for other people as to how to treat us, because how you treat yourself really does model for others how to treat you. So if you are constantly denying your own needs and your own desires and the things that you want, then why would anybody else treat you any differently? So a few ways that we can go about asking. So the first thing is ask early. So don't leave it until you become disgruntled. Don't wait for people to guess. As much as it might be lovely for people to just know what we wanted, to read our minds and to have us front and centre in their world, so much so that they know exactly how to meet our needs, it's not realistic. So ask early. The earlier you ask, as I said, the earlier people will start to understand what it is you want, who you are as a person, and what to expect from you. And the earlier you ask as well, the more likely you're going to be able to ask with a calm and kind and genuine open energy, because when we ask for something from an energy of frustration or anger, then people are less inclined to help us or to give us what we want. And then they become quite wary of us and maybe feel like they need to tread on eggshells around us all the time. So when you ask early, you can ask with a much lighter energy, which makes things easier for everyone. Be ready, be prepared to receive. So sometimes we may be asking for things in life, but we're not actually ready and open to receive them. Perhaps we feel like we don't deserve them or we're not worthy of them. So get comfortable with receiving what you're asking for. And I would also say, don't apologise. So don't start your ask when you're asking for something with, I'm really sorry, but I just wanted to ask, I hope you don't mind if, because all of those things, all of that language just says that you don't believe that you deserve or that you are worthy of what you're asking for. Don't apologise for being who you are. Do not apologise for existing. So many of us do this all day, every day. And it's really important to check ourselves, to check our language, and to find clear and concise ways of saying things that do not involve an apology or a way of talking that minimises what we're asking for or minimises us and our existence. So do bear in mind your language when you are asking for something that you want. And if it helps prepare in advance, be really clear on why you're asking for what you want, why you believe that you deserve it, and don't give too much detail, but be ready to engage in an open and calm way if the other person wants to have a conversation about it. And then finally, be prepared for people to say no, as in don't believe that they're going to say no from the outset, but also don't fear it, because all that means is that you then know what they are willing to give, and you can then decide whether that's okay for you or not. And then you can choose whether to stay in that situation, whether to negotiate and come to a compromise, or whether it's time for you to leave and go somewhere else, whether that be at work or whether that be in a relationship. It's really important to hear what the other person is saying and then to make a choice based on that, rather than avoiding the conversation altogether in order to avoid hearing somebody else's truth, because sometimes that means we have to make a difficult decision. And so that's where we come back to, the earlier you can have these conversations and show exactly who you are and what you expect and what's okay for you in life, then the earlier other people know that, and the less complicated situations become effectively, and the less emotion gets involved when we are asking for what we want. So as always, I hope that has been useful for you. I'd love to hear your experiences of asking for what you want in life. And if you have any questions or comments, I'd love to hear them. If some of that has resonated with you really strongly and you think it might be beneficial for us to work together, you can contact me at www.corinworsley.com, or you can message me on Facebook, Instagram or LinkedIn, and I will get back to you as soon as I possibly can. So that's all for this week, and I very much look forward to speaking to you again for next week's Sunday service.